concerning is it, first off, just to see the president attacking the Supreme Court like this?
I think it's very disturbing and unfair. It's disturbing in the sense that he's calling them unpatriotic and disloyal. And that is a signal to people in this country in which we're sitting in a political environment in which there are threats, death threats against the justices and the judges across the country. I don't think these justices will cower, but it also might mean that it's sending a signal to lower court judges. And the reason I say it's unfair, I mean, this is a 6-member majority, and the judges below in the lower courts are almost uniformly the same way as the outcome today. There's one dissenting judge in the lower courts below, but this is basically the way that most lawyers in the conservative legal community saw that the outcome was writing on the wall, that this is how they would decide this opinion because the law really did not give him the basis for these tariffs.
And David, from the vice president also bashing the justices in the majority, saying, quote, this is lawlessness from the court, plain and simple, after Trump's extraordinary rebuke earlier today, which let's play some of that.
And I'm ashamed of certain members of the court, absolutely ashamed, for not having the courage to do what's right for our country. They're just being fools and lapdogs for the rhinos and the radical left Democrats. They don't want to do the right thing. They're afraid of it. I think their decision was terrible. Yeah. I think it's an embarrassment to their families. You want to know the truth.
What is your reaction, David, to that incredibly strong reaction from the president?
Here is the alternative that President Trump had on Inauguration Day, on his so-called Liberation Day, and that he has today. Write a tariff bill, submit it to Congress, let them enact it, and then raise tariffs on everybody. Had he done that, I would have opposed it. I'm a free marketeer. I believe in trade. I think tariffs are stupid. But clearly, tariffs passed by Congress are legal. They're in Article 1 of the Constitution. But he didn't want to do that. And not just because he didn't have the votes, because Congress recognizes, I do, that tariffs are stupid and harmful. He didn't want to do it because the whole point of his exercise from the beginning was to increase his personal arbitrary power over others and to open the opportunities for corruption that flow from arbitrary power. That's what he's mad about, not the loss of tariffs. He could submit a tariff bill tomorrow, and he's got still majorities in both houses of Congress. It's not the tariffs that he wants. It's the arbitrary personal power and the right to sell favors and exemptions to that power. That's what this is about. It's about, is this a constitutional republic or not? Does Article 1 bind the president or not? And the Supreme Court, I'm amazed there are 3 justices who decided this wrong, but the Supreme Court said 6-3, Article 1 is there, tariffs belong to Congress, you want tariffs, write a tariff bill.
Yeah. Former Congressman Max Rose, what do you think?
I think we're totally missing the point here. Look, the separation of powers ship sailed off a long, long time ago. This is about the policy decisions that the Trump administration is getting behind. They need money. Why do they need money? They need money to pay for tax cuts for the wealthiest amongst us. They need money to take away health care from poor people, and they need money to fund forever wars. And they are choosing, irrespective of the Supreme Court, irrespective of the Constitution, to get that money by taxing working people on the things that they buy. And they believe in this so much that they don't care who objects to it. That's what matters here. These are policy decisions, yet again illustrating how the Trump administration absolutely despises and opposes the interests of working people.
Yeah, David, maybe you can react to that, but also I want to see what you think about this, because Trump really went out of his way to praise the 3 justices who sided with him on the tariffs, only one of whom he appointed, right, and dissented from the majority. Let's listen to that.
I'd like to thank and congratulate Justices Thomas, Alito, and Kavanaugh for their strength and wisdom and love of our country, which is right now very proud of those justices. You got to do what's right for the Constitution. That's why I respect so much Justice Thomas and Alito, Kavanaugh, because they not only dissented, their dissent is so strong.
I mean, it can be strong. It can be weak. Yeah. It's the dissent. It isn't the law of the land. I wonder what Trump's reasoning there, David, tells you about just how he's seeing this. And you know, maybe to Max's point there.
There are 4 basic powers of Congress that Donald Trump has been invading in the second term. The first is the power to tax. He claimed that through these crazy tariffs. The second is the power to spend, because Donald Trump has been taking the revenues that have been collected from tariffs, $40 billion a month, almost $200 billion already, more than $2 trillion if these tariffs had remained in place over the next 10 years. He's been taking that money and he's been spending it, beginning with payoffs to farmers, but there's other spending coming too. So he's ignoring Congress's power to tax. He's ignoring Congress's power to spend. He tried to indict members of Congress for things they said, ignoring not only the First Amendment, but the speech and debate clause of the Constitution, which says members of Congress can say what they want as part of their duty. So he's invaded that. And now we're getting ready for him to ignore Congress's war power, because it looks like we're on the eve of a major war with Iran without a vote in Congress or without even so much as a debate in Congress. There's a lot of merit to striking the Iranians to help the Iranian people, but Congress should be involved. Congress's members can't be indicted for things they say. Congress must tax. Congress must spend.
And a lot of people making that point today. You making it very broadly there, David. Ryan, I just want to kind of get into the nitty-gritty of the specific justices here, because I know that you were surprised that Justice Kavanaugh dissented. Why? And what do you think where he landed on this might signal?
So it's a bit of a surprise to see him in this three-member dissent because they're basically wrong on the law, and the supermajority of federal judges have said so. But it's also the way in which Justice Kavanaugh wrote his opinion. Chief Justice Roberts does something quite unusual. He actually chastises Kavanaugh a bit by saying that the government's argument was echoed point by point by the principal dissent, and that is Kavanaugh. When he's saying that, he's basically saying, Chief Justice Roberts is saying that Kavanaugh was parroting the government's position, which Justice Kavanaugh does not need to do. He's obviously a high intellectual and his ability to reason his own way through, but the fact that he parrots it, the fact that he's in the dissent, I think gives him more room to maneuver back into the majority when other cases are coming up before the court in which I do think he might very well invalidate some of the actions. He's already moved off of the mark on ICE immigration enforcement actions. He had first suggested that racial profiling was a legitimate factor, and then recently took an opportunity to kind of back away from that. I think also seeing the public reaction to ICE's actions and calling them Kavanaugh stops. This is giving him more of a maneuverability, see all the praise that he got from the president today. In the future, when he does maybe decide with the majority to invalidate other actions, I think he's bought himself and the court more legitimacy and more room to do so.
Yeah, Congressman, I wonder how you see that.